Our indigenous ancestors said that before this cycle, the cycle before ours, was a cycle that was called the Golden Age. The Golden Age where people lived healthy lives, they were close to the earth, they lived to advanced ages, and there was no war. And they said 5,000 years ago, they told us we were entering a dark cycle of war and suffering that would last 5,000 years and end December 21st of the year 2012. And they said, from that time forward, we have the opportunity. Do we perpetuate this cycle of darkness, or do we start anew? Do we embrace the deepest truths of our science that tell us life is based upon cooperation and mutual aid? That's the question that we're answering right now. Before I get into the program today, I want to say a few words about Louise Hay. That's right. Doesn't she look great? Oh, she's beautiful, just beautiful. I was working as a senior computer systems designer in the defense industry in the last years of the Cold War. We were working in locked rooms, secured vaults. We didn't even get to see what our colleagues were working on during the day, but we would all gather together in the same cafeteria for lunch. It was in the late 1980s that I realized that many of the people that were in that room for lunch would go off into a little corner all by themselves and read a little book that had just been published called You Can Heal Your Life. These were defense engineers working on nuclear missiles, and during lunch they were reading about healing their lives. I think most of you know the story of Louise. In the early 1980s, there was a mysterious disease that began to affect a lot of people in the United States, throughout the world. Nobody knew what it was. People didn't know much about it, but people were dying. And Louise began inviting people into her home. She didn't understand the disease, but she knew that whatever was happening in their bodies was nothing that we were not equipped to transcend. She said, whatever happens in this world, we come to this world with a power, not just to survive, but to transcend the great challenges that come to our lives. She says, we don't fully understand this disease, but we can be together and we can work through it. And it was that belief that drew me to Louise's work, because what Louise Hay said about that mysterious disease, HIV/AIDS, in the early 1980s, what she said about that applies to our lives today. It's not so much about a disease, it's about a series of crises that we face, global challenges that threaten our very existence. We don't fully understand them, but we're working through them together as a family. Whatever happens in this world, it's going to happen as a family, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. That's why I wanted you to help me acknowledge all the people on the streaming video, because there's a world of people watching this program today, and I am so appreciative of the opportunity to be here. So, oh, there's that picture. You ever turn around and see yourself on a big screen and you're not expecting it? It's a little disconcerting. So could I have my first slide up, please? Thank you. If you're like me, you want to know where we're going to go these next 90 minutes. I want to talk to you about what's changing in our world. Many people are telling us that we are in a crisis, the breakdown of familiar ways of life, familiar ways of living. I want to share with you the false assumptions of science that have led to many of the crises that we're living today, and the new discoveries of science that tell us where the old ways of thinking are false, and how we can apply these things in our lives in a healthy, meaningful way. Let's find out what works and what's real, and the things that work, let's do a lot of them, and the things that don't work anymore, let's don't put our time into them. This is a rare and precious moment in the history of our world, our nation, our planet. It's a rare opportunity. The world is changing, and I think you know that. If you're in this room, I know that you know it's no ordinary time. The world is changing. I don't think we want to stop the change, but I think we have the opportunity to direct where the change leads and maybe to soften the impact of what that change means in our lives. Much of what I'm going to do today is based on a new book. It's called Deep Truth. And I want to talk to you about where this title comes from. The first thing I discovered when I released this book in the fall of last year is that the word truth means different things to different people. Did you know that? So a lot of people ask me, Greg, what gives you the right? What gives you the right to put the word truth on the cover of your book? Isn't that a little presumptuous? So I want to share with you where this title comes from. It is from a direct quote from one of the great minds of the 20th century. Niels Bohr, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist, was having a conversation with his friend and his colleague, Albert Einstein, in the mid-20th century, a time not unlike the time we're living now. Many crises were unfolding in the world. People were on the move. Governments were on the move. And there was an attempt to figure out how to solve the great problems of the 20th century. And Niels Bohr said to Albert Einstein in that conversation, he said, "It is the hallmark of any deep truth that its negation is also a deep truth." And what he meant by that was that when new discoveries overturn what we used to believe were the deepest truths of our existence, then the new discoveries themselves become the new deep truths. And when I saw that, I said, that has to be the title for this new book, because that is precisely what this book is all about. This book is about the discoveries, the peer-reviewed scientific discoveries that tell us where the thinking of the past is incorrect, or in some cases it's flat out wrong. And you would think that people would be really happy to know that these discoveries have been made. But I want to say to you, there is a reluctance. In some cases, there's a flat-out resistance to share these discoveries in the mainstream media, mainstream documentaries, mainstream science, mainstream classrooms, mainstream textbooks. They're not sharing the new discoveries. The result is that we're trying to solve the great problems of our time through the same thinking that led to the problems. Now, I have to be really, really clear when I talk about classrooms and teachers. How many teachers are in this room right now? I want to tell you, I so appreciate the work you're doing. Absolutely, I appreciate the work you're doing. I've traveled the world in the last 5 years, and I know that it works differently in different countries. In the United States of America, teachers in public schools are bound by a covenant within the state that they teach. If the curricula is not approved by the state, they cannot teach it. So unless the state approves new scientific discoveries, those discoveries cannot be shared in the classroom. And we're teaching obsolete science to our young people and asking them to solve the greatest crises of human history with a thinking that led to the crisis. And it's changing. It's changing. So this is what I want to talk to you about. It's not our imagination. We are living a world in crisis, but is it a crisis that has a bad ending, or is it a crisis that is a stepping stone toward transformation? You and I are answering that question. We're determining the outcome of our time in history right now by the way we solve our problems. We're living what the experts are calling a perfect storm. A perfect storm. It is the convergence of natural cycles of the earth that are pushing unsustainable ways of living and unsustainable ways of thinking to the limits. Natural cycles of the earth are pushing the limits of the way that we've lived in the past and what it means to us. The result is that the world we've known in the past no longer exists. The world of the past is gone. We no longer live in isolated countries, isolated economies, isolated technologies, or energy, or defense, or communication. And what that means is that many of the key institutions that we have come to trust and rely upon in our world no longer exist. The way we think about money is changing. I think you all know that. The way we think about jobs and careers, religion, medicine, health, security, all of these things have changed, but nobody told us. I wish they would just come up with a television special on CNN or Fair and Balanced news stations that tell us the world that you've known in the past no longer exists, but nobody's really doing that. I have this conversation with my mom a lot. My mom, she's 4 feet, 11 inches tall. Her health is failing. And when we get to see each other, we have some pretty deep conversations. I was on a flight from Los Angeles to Lima, Peru, just a few weeks ago. And that's where I catch up on all my movies. So there was a movie that was called The Bucket List. How many saw The Bucket List? Did you see that? Okay. How many did not see it? Okay, I don't want to spoil it for you. It's Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson, two men at the end of their lives, terminal conditions. They're sharing a hospital room, and they begin to talk to one another about all the things they never accomplished in their lives, the things they wish they had done that they never got around to doing, and they made a list of what those things were. That was their bucket list, and the rest of the movie is a very touching film of the story of them helping one another fulfill their dreams. So I came home and I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, do you have a bucket list?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "What is it?" And she showed me, and I looked at my mom's bucket list, and I said, "These are easy things. We can do all of these. We can start right now." And she said, "Nope, not yet." She said that a lot in life. I said, "Why not?" She said, "Let's wait until the world settles down." Well, I hope that's not my mom. She said, "Let's wait until the world settles down." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Let's wait until things get back to normal." I said, "What do you mean by normal?" She said, "Let's wait until things get back to the way they were 5, 8, 10 years ago." That world is gone. And the world that my mom is waiting for before she fulfills her bucket list will never appear. I know that you know there are people right now who are struggling, who are suffering because the world changed and they feel like it left them behind. Many people are clinging to an idea of a world that no longer exists, and they're waiting for that world to return. Other people recognize that the world of the past served us. It worked so well, it got us to where we are today, and a new world is emerging. Have you seen the new world that's emerging? Have you embraced the new world that's emerging? That's what today is all about. I'm going to share with you reasons to embrace this new world and some powerful, powerful possibilities of what it means in our lives. The changes that I'm talking about begin at a very high level. The changes are driven by Earth's location in space, by the tilt, the angle, the wobble, the orbit of our planet. On a cyclic basis, a rhythmic basis, Earth changes its location in space. And when that happens, it changes our relationship to the sun. It changes our relationship to other planets. That changes the climate on our planet. That changes the weather on our planet. That changes when it gets hot and when it's cold and when it rains and when it snows. That changes when we can grow our food. And that changes how we work together to share the resources that are disappearing in times where the crops don't go the way we expected them to go. When fresh water becomes a diminishing resource. That's what's happening right now. Our ancestors understood these changes. And I know many of you are experts on the Mayan calendar and the Aztec calendar and the Tibetan traditions and the Native American traditions, because all of our ancestors' traditions have warned us for 5,000 years that this time, this generation, these years, this little window of time, we would be the generation that would live this great shift. They knew it was coming because it always does. Every 5,125 years, the cycle changes the way we live on this planet, and that changes the way we treat one another. The choices that we make during this time will determine the outcome of our time. Our ancestors told us this in the language of their time. Our own science now is beginning to understand through the core samples of Antarctica just how these cycles work. And they're saying, wow, if our ancestors knew so much about the cycles in their time, what else did they know that we're only beginning to understand? This has opened up a new door, a relationship between the indigenous traditions of the world in the past and the best science of today, as we do our very best to marry the science and the spiritual traditions of our ancestors into the wisdom that will carry us through this time of change. If there's any doubt in your mind that these cycles have a profound influence on us, I want to share just a little bit. In the interest of time, I'm going to do this very quickly. Can you all see this, the screen from where you are right now? Can you see that? What I'd like for you to see is this. The graph begins in the year 1750, right up here. It ends in the year 1920. And what you're seeing is the ebb and the flow, the rise and the fall of solar cycles during this period of time. And you can see that there is a cycle. You can see the rhythm. Can you all see that from where you are? Okay. The next graph that I put above this is the ebb and the flow, the rise and fall of significant human activity as it relates to the cycles. So there's cycles of war, cycles of peace, cycles of scientific innovation and discovery and art and music. All of these things together, see if you see a relationship here. Can you see that? Can you see it from where you are? There's a correlation. Our activities, significant human activities, are directly linked to the cycles that we're living right now. This is a study that was done by Princeton University. Very famous scientist, Soetbert Ertel, made this statement. He said the periods of the greatest levels of human flourishing in creativity and science and the arts are clearly shown to occur during solar activity peaks. So human activity, our choices of how we live our lives, are directly influenced by where we are in the cycles. The reason I'm sharing this with you for any reason is because we are in a critical cycle right now. These are the solar cycles. Solar cycle 22 ended in the early 1990s. Solar cycle 23 ended in the early 2000s. And then there was a mysterious year where the sun went very quiet until January of 2011. In January of 2011, the solar cycle began again, solar cycle 24. What this means is that we are on the leading edge of a powerful force, a pulse of energy that historically has led to the greatest levels of human flourishing, creativity, and science and the arts in history. That means whatever choices you and I make right now, we've got some help. We've got a little boost. The cycles of change are in our favor. Whatever it is that we choose in our hearts and in our minds to anchor in this world, the ways that we solve our problems right now, we're going to have this help, this amplification, as it has been in the past. There were some people that stopped me in the hall on the way over here today. And they said, Greg, are you going to talk about science or are you going to talk about spiritual stuff? And I said to the woman, can you draw a line where science ends and spirituality begins? And she said, no. And I said, good, because that's what this is all about. Most of you, if you're in this audience, I can't see everyone in the audience, but I bet I know about the people in this audience. You have been on a path to understand yourself and your relationship to the world for 30, 40, 50, 60 years or more. If we were ever going to apply all the things that we claim to now understand about ourselves, apply it to the real world, I think now's a really good time to do that. What do you think? Is this a good time to apply those principles in our lives? The journal Scientific American, in September of 2005, I share this cover a lot because it's important. The journal Scientific American released a special edition in September of 2005 to tell the world from a scientific perspective that this is no ordinary time in the history of our planet. The title tells the whole story. Look at the title, Crossroads for Planet Earth. Crossroads for Planet Earth. It says that something very unusual is happening in our world. This is the subtitle, and if you can't see it, I'm going to read this to you. The subtitle of the magazine is actually asking the reader, you, a question. The statement, it says, the human race is at a unique turning point. So the scientists are telling us that something unique is happening. Then they ask us a question. Will we choose to create the best of all possible worlds from this turning point? They're telling us that it's up to us, that we have a choice in terms of how we deal with these problems. Obviously, we're living a time of extremes. I don't think anyone can argue with that, a time of extremes. They're telling us that we've got to act, that we've got to make choices right now. The question is how? How can we possibly make the kinds of choices that we're being asked to make? How can we possibly make the greatest choices of our survival until we answer the deepest truths of our existence? And this is where the new book comes in. The deepest truths of our existence. The way that you and I answer one question holds the key. I'm going to ask you this question right now. The way that we answer one question is the reason for every decision that you have ever made in your life or will ever make from this day forward. It's all based on the way you answer one question. The way that you answer a single question is the basis for every choice that you've ever made. It's at the heart of every challenge that has ever crossed your path. The way you answer a single question. Do you want to know what that question is right now? Just say yes, because if you say no, it's a really short program, okay? So just say yes. Say, yes, Greg, what is the question? I'm glad that you asked. The question is deceptively simple. Please do not be deceived by the simplicity of this question, because everything hinges upon the way you answer. The question is simply this: who am I? Who am I? Or because there are a lot of us in this world, the question becomes, who are we? This is the pivotal question. It's the lens through which you and I see ourselves, our relationship to the world, our relationship to one another, our relationship to the past, to the future. It's all about the way we answer this question. The bulk of my adult life, I have searched the world to answer the question for myself. I love to see this slide when it comes up here, because people remind me that my search to answer the question is documented by the length of my hair over the years. And then recently they started reminding me that it's documented by the color of my hair over the years. I don't care what color it is as long as it's still there. I'm just happy it's all there. My journey has taken me into some of the most isolated, beautiful, remote, pristine places remaining in the world today, repositories of knowledge from our ancestors, so that I can understand better my relationship to myself and to the past. This is the hardest part of the whole program for me, because every image I'm about to share with you has a story, and I cannot share the entire story in the interest of time. I'm going to say this: my journey has taken me into some of the most magnificent monasteries in the highest elevations of the world. A journey has taken me into these beautiful temples in places that very, very few people have had the opportunity to see. In Southeast Asia, humble mud brick monasteries in the deserts of Egypt and the Sinai. This monastery has been in this place for 1,500 years. And you would never imagine, looking at the outside, what the inside looks like. Right here. Can you see that? The first time I saw this, I was amazed, and then I realized they had 1,500 years to decorate, to search the world for the things to bring into this. This is St. Catherine's Monastery on the Sinai Desert of Egypt. And it's in this monastery where we found the library that is second only to the Vatican in terms of the text and the images that are in this library. There are woodcuts of the crucifixion that were made within 100 years of the time of Jesus, and the text that described the crucifixion and the images of the man himself made by the artist who lived after that time. This means that these people actually saw, they witnessed the crucifixion and made the paintings. This means that we may actually have a very authentic image of what the man named Jesus looked like. I've been to other libraries in the monasteries of Tibet, for example. This one, where this young monk is opening the door to a library that is 16,500 feet above sea level in the Himalayas. This library, when he opened the door, this is what the room looked like. This is my very famous dark room image. And when the lights came on, this is what we saw right here. This is a Tibetan library, 3 stories tall. This is my hand right here with a flashlight. These books are written from documents that were even older than the books themselves, before they had paper, from stone documents. They've been copied into the most cherished traditions of our time, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi Library, the Coptic libraries. All of these texts preserve a wisdom of us and our relationship to the world. They help us to answer, who are we? Who am I? I've been with the people that live the traditions of the texts. I've spent time with these people. These are the sadhus in northern Nepal and India. I've been with the indigenous people when their loved ones have died and left this world, and when new ones are born and come into this world. We've shared meals together. We've shared revolutions together. I've been in their countries when they were overthrown. Look at this beautiful man. Can you see this man's eyes? These are the tantric masters of northern India. He's got great hair. Can you see his hair? There's a wisdom that is preserved in the indigenous traditions of our past, a wisdom that fills in the missing pieces of what science is only beginning to understand today. We've been with the masters that have gone deep within their own being to answer the question, who am I? To understand themselves. I've had the opportunity to spend time with the shaman in Bolivia and Peru. Some of you were with me only last week. I was in Peru with this shaman right here, and some of you in this room were with me. Beautiful, beautiful man. He's standing on his feet. I'd love to go to Peru. I tower over all the Peruvians when I'm there. In northern Nepal, the feminine wisdom of the past is preserved in a way that I haven't seen in any other part of the world. The women hold the wisdom. And in this tradition, you do not have to die to become a saint. So this is a living saint in northern Nepal that we've had the opportunity to spend time with. Look into her eyes. What a beautiful woman. And the wisdom that she preserves. And I've met people, I am going to tell this story. I've met people like this. This man is a pilgrim who appeared in the Jokang Temple courtyard. If you know where the Jokang Temple is, in Lhasa, Tibet. He had walked 8 months to get to the place where I met him. He had walked across the Tibetan plateau. Look into his eyes. He's in an altered state. But he didn't just take one step after another. He took one step, and then he laid his body down in a full prostration. And then he stood up and took another step and did the same thing again and again and again. And I asked him why he chose to put himself through that. We were in a bus. Our bus pulled up in the temple parking lot as this man had walked 8 months to get to the place where our bus just arrived. I said, "Why did you do this?" He said it was to know himself. So we all have different paths to know ourselves and our relationship to the world. In the Western traditions, for 5,000 years, we have witnessed our indigenous ancestors, and what they tell us, for 300 years, we have relied upon science to tell us who we are. Science is only about 300 years old. Began during the time of Isaac Newton, when he formalized the laws of physics. Science is good. I was trained as a scientist, and I have to tell you, science does not have all the answers. Science does not have all the answers. There are glaring gaps and huge inconsistencies in what science is telling us about our world. So what I'd like to do quickly, I'm going to describe 5 false assumptions that science has made about you and me and our relationship to the world. You were taught these assumptions when you were in school. I was taught when I was in school. Your young people are being taught these things today, even though the new discoveries tell us they're no longer true. So let me go through these quickly. The first false assumption is that evolution explains life and it explains human life. I want to tell you that the data simply does not support this. The data no longer supports this. The physical data doesn't support it. The DNA data certainly doesn't support it. We're going to talk more about this in just a few minutes. The second false assumption is about civilization. I was taught that civilization is a linear deal, a one-time deal. It began a long time ago in a primitive state, and that we are the pinnacle, the sophisticated top of civilization. The problem is that the data no longer supports this. I'm going to share this with you in just a few minutes. The data shows that civilization is cyclic. Advanced civilization is cyclic. That means our ancestors lived through the changes in their time, very close to what we're living in ours, and if we have the wisdom to learn from them, it may help us to transcend the great challenges of our time. The third false assumption is about consciousness itself. We've been taught that consciousness is somehow separate from our physical world. The fourth assumption is with regard to physics. We've been taught that the space between things is empty. We've been taught that the space between physical things is empty. That means everything is separate from everything else. And we've been led to believe that what we do in one place has no effect with what we do in somewhere else. New discoveries are changing all of this. The fifth false assumption is another Darwinian assumption. It's with regard to nature. You and I were taught that nature is based upon what Darwin called survival of the strongest. It was later interpreted as survival in the fittest. Survival of the strongest. This is such a dangerous way to think. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, okay, Greg, they said maybe science didn't get it right. Darwin's ideas, those were a long time ago. What difference could they possibly make today? This is the 21st century. Darwin put these ideas out in 1859. What difference could it make? It's a good question. And I'm going to share with you the answer. We live in a modern world, that's true. The foundation of our modern world was put into place in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, just at the time that Darwin was releasing this information. So the ideas, survival of the strongest, these are incorporated into the economic system that's collapsing as we speak, into the corporate systems that are collapsing as we speak, into the way we solve our problems between nations. Can you all feel the big war that is brewing over the Middle East right now? Can you feel that? There's a big push for a war in the Middle East. It doesn't have to happen. I'm going to share with you some very encouraging reasons to believe that it will not happen. But unless something changes, it may happen. That war is based on this idea, survival of the strongest. Yes, it's an old idea, and it's a dangerous, dangerous way of thinking. If you're taking notes right now, write the word false at the top of these assumptions and put a big X through them. Because every one of these is scientifically proven to be absolutely false, and every one of them are still being taught in our classrooms today. We have a whole generation of young people that believe this is what the world looks like. Here's why it's important. The way we answer 6 questions is the lens through which we will solve our problem. Here's the questions. The way we answer, where does life come from? That's number 1. Number 2, where does human life come from? Number 3, what is our relationship to our bodies? Number 4, what is our relationship to the world around us? Number 5, what is our relationship to the past? Number 6, how do we solve our problems? Science has led us to believe that number 1, the origin of life is a random event, that the origin of human life is random, that we are separate and powerless from our bodies, that we are separate and independent from the earth itself, that civilization is a one-way deal, and that competition and conflict are the way to solve our problems. The world that we see today is the world that reflects those false assumptions. If you want to know where those false assumptions are going to lead, it's the world that we have right now. Collapsing economies, war to solve the problems, land that no longer produces the food, diminishing resources. Our false assumptions have caught up with us. So now we have the opportunity to choose again. We have now found ourselves in the global extremes that have become the human extremes, that now have become the personal extremes for all of us. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to talk about a couple of these. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask for your permission. If you're in this room, you probably know that consciousness is not separate from the physical world. Am I right? Okay, so can I cross that one off? And you know that the space between things is not empty. There is a form of energy everywhere. We're only beginning to measure those forms of energy. So if I cross those 2 off, are you okay with that? I'm glad you said yes, because I just did it. Let's take a look at the Darwinian assumptions. Number 1 and number 5. In 1859, Charles Darwin published his first book. You may know this book by the title, The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, because that's the title that's used in the classrooms today. However, it is not the full title. Let me share with you the rest of the title. If you turn the inside page, the rest of the title gives us insight into the way that Darwin was thinking and into why he came to the conclusions that he came to. So here's the full title. The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. That's a whole different feeling, isn't it? The preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. It tells us 2 things. Number 1, it tells us that Darwin saw life as a struggle. So everything he looked at, he interpreted through the lens of struggle. Number 2, he saw what he believed were favored races, that some would win out over others. He incorporated these into his books. These are now ideas that are incorporated into the very fabric of our lives and our society, even though they were formulated at the end of the late 1800s. All right, I just want to share some of Darwin's own language with you. I want you to see the words that he was using. Very flowery language. When Darwin talked about the beginnings of life, he believed that all life came from a single cell, a single form, and this is the way he described that. He said, therefore, I should infer from analogy that probably all the organic beings which have ever lived on this earth have descended from some one primordial form into which life was first breathed. Does that sound scientific to you? If I used that language in a scientific symposium, I'd be laughed right off the stage. Therefore, I should infer from analogy that probably all the organic beings which have ever lived descended from some one primordial form into which life was first breathed. Who did the breathing? Where did the breath come from? But this is an example of the language that Darwin used. The academics are fighting to keep this in the classroom today. Now, as a geologist, I have to tell you, this is one of my favorite images right here. I was trained as a geologist, my first degree. This is a map of the geologic history of our planet. The most recent is at the top, the most ancient is at the bottom. Right here, there's a mysterious place, 545 million years ago, a time called the Cambrian. Have you all heard of the Big Bang in physics? You've all heard of that? The primal explosion that is believed to have released the energy for the universe. This is the Big Bang in biology. In this time that you see highlighted, 98% of all the life forms that are on the planet today occurred in that little window of time. Now, I don't know why it happened, I don't know what happened, but I do know that's not Darwin's idea of evolution. Here's a little graph to show how quickly it happened. 98% of all life appeared in that little window of time. That's not the slow, gradual evolution that Darwin proposed in his theory. So this isn't Darwin's idea of evolution for life, but what does it mean for us? What does it mean for humans? This is where it gets really interesting. This is a chart that was taken from a very recent television special. I wanted this to be as current as possible. And if you look at the little skinny lines that connect the different forms of life, we, modern human, we're at the top of the chart, and this is supposed to be the human evolutionary tree that connects all of us together. I'm going to highlight in blue right there. Can you see that? Those blue links that are supposed to connect us to these beings of the past, if you look closely on the chart, they are called speculative links or inferred links. They don't actually exist. Scientists propose they exist. They believe they exist. The evidence doesn't support it. But they're taught as fact. The DNA is where this is getting really interesting. So this is the deluxe DC Hay House I Can Do It 90-minute keynote presentation by Gregg Braden. The update to search for the missing links. Do you want the latest and greatest in the update of the search for the missing links of human past? Yes or no? I'm glad you said yes. It's going to be real fast. The update is it's still missing. It's still missing because it probably doesn't exist. I'm going to cut right to the bottom line of this. This should have made the cover of major newspapers throughout the world. It was relegated to some technical journals. 1987, scientists found the body of a Neanderthal baby girl in a cave underneath the earth in northern Europe in a rare state of preservation. Neanderthal baby girl. Neanderthal is supposed to be our ancestor. We're told that we are descendants of Neanderthal. 1987, the discovery was made. Her body was preserved so well. Her hair was preserved. Her fingernails were preserved. Her skin was preserved. She was preserved so well that what else was preserved? You tell me. Exactly, her DNA was preserved. All of a sudden, scientists could compare Neanderthal DNA of the past to us today. Her body was dated at 30,000 years old. 30,000 years old. Okay, I'm going to cut right to the chase. The last sentence of the last paragraph of the very prestigious journal Nature tells us what the scientific validation of this actually revealed. It says the results suggest modern human was not, in fact, descended from Neanderthals. Their DNA didn't match our DNA. As a matter of fact, the discoveries show that we shared the earth. We walked the earth with Neanderthals, so we could not have descended from Neanderthals. We probably had Neanderthal boyfriends and girlfriends. Okay, now I have to tell you, I said that at another I Can Do It in Vancouver, and a woman on the front row said, "Still do." And the guy next to her didn't laugh. We almost had to go into a relationship conference right there. So the point is, we are not descendants of Neanderthal. We know now who we are not. The new family tree looks like this. This is us up on the top, and now Neanderthal is way out to the side. Here's the deal. Modern humans, your body and my body, we showed up on this earth about 200,000 years ago in this form, and we have not changed in 200,000 years. I don't know how we got here, I don't know why we got here, but I know that that is not Darwin's idea of evolution. We have not changed in 200,000 years. If you take an anatomically modern human from 200,000 years ago, you put that skeleton next to mine, except for the legs that are a little thicker on theirs, you cannot tell us apart. The body proportions are the same, brain size is the same, cranial capacity is the same. If we want to get to the bottom of who we are, we've got to answer the question, what happened 200,000 years ago? And that is not where the science is leading. So what I'm saying to you here is that Darwin's idea of evolution, scientifically, it is no longer validated, but still being taught in the classroom, and the new discoveries are not being allowed in the classroom. The new discoveries are not being allowed to be shared in the classroom. Evolution does not explain human beginnings. All right, so I'm going to cross that one off. Civilization. I'm going to go somewhere with this really fast, so I'm going to move quickly. Civilization. And nature based upon survival of the strongest. These are the two that I want to really focus on here. Darwin believed that when he saw insects and animals in nature, that he was looking at little examples of a general law that applies to all life, including you and me. So I'm going to share his language, the way that he described that. This is what it looks like. Darwin, and I love this, when Darwin begins his explanation by saying to us what he is about to say may not be logical, because that's the way he begins. He says, it may not be a logical conclusion, but to my imagination, it is satisfactory to look at insects, such as, and animals, such as the young birds ejecting one another from a nest, or ants making slaves of other ants. Darwin would see one colony of ants. They would capture and enslave another colony of ants. They didn't kill them, they made them work for one another. Darwin said, it may not be logical, but he said, when I see those things, what I'm looking at are little examples of one general law that leads to the advancement of all beings. This is where it gets really dangerous. Darwin said that law is let the strongest live and the weakest die. Let the strongest live and the weakest die. This is such a dangerous way of thinking. We are living in a world that's a consequence of this way of thinking. The way that we solve our problems, the way that we've learned to work together. How many of you have heard that we live in a world that's a dog-eat-dog world? Have you ever heard that? Our young people are being taught that. I'm going to share with you the science that shows it's not true. You know it's a dangerous way of thinking. The 20th century gave us some of the most horrible examples of human suffering and atrocity that were justified in Darwin's ideas. When Hitler began to implement his ideas, he paraphrased Darwin's work, but he didn't give him credit. Chairman Mao actually gave Darwin credit. He said, because these are scientific ideas, it justifies us eliminating inferior members of our species, of our families, based upon the science. I don't want to linger on this. I want to get to the good news. There's the good news right there. The good news, 400 studies were done in the late 1990s to determine the optimum amount of competition between any environment, in the classroom, in the playing field, in the workplace. 400 studies all came back with the same answer. They said that competition always is destructive. The ideal amount of competition, violent competition, in any environment, the classroom, the workplace, the family, the playing field, is none. Competition is always destructive. Now, I want to say a couple of words about competition, because I know some of you are saying, I thought competition is a good thing. There's different kinds of competition. There is one form of competition where an individual or a group benefits at the expense of another. And in nature, that's called violent competition, where we exploit the weakness of another. There's another form of competition where an individual or a group excel by developing their abilities to the greatest degree possible. And when they do that, they make the old ways of doing things obsolete. That's a form of competition as well. These studies are looking at violent competition where we exploit the weaknesses of others. And they're saying in no place is it beneficial. This kind of competition is always destructive. Look at this. Very prestigious journal, New Scientist. 2008, April 16, 2008. Michael LePage is the author of this. He says, what we see in the wild is not every animal out for itself. He said cooperation is an incredibly successful survival strategy, and that when cooperation breaks down, the results can be disastrous. Cooperation and mutual aid are the fundamental rule of nature. If you want to see just how deep this runs in your life, I'm going to invite you to do this. If you want to see how deep cooperation runs in the natural world, you need look no further than the body that houses the consciousness that's looking at me on the stage right now. Tomorrow afternoon, you're going to see my dear friend, colleague, and spiritual brother, Dr. Bruce Lipton, come up on he's sitting on the front row right now. Bruce Lipton is going to be up here, and what Bruce tells us, Bruce, thank you for your work. Let's give Bruce a hand. Oh, he's embarrassed. Bruce tells us that when we look at our bodies, we think we're one body, but we're actually a community of about 50 trillion cells. Is that right, the number? 50 trillion cells. Those 50 trillion cells that make your body must cooperate with one another to give you the health and the vitality that bring you into this room. And when that cooperation breaks down, you call it disease. And if the disease goes far enough, you call it death. So at the very essence of your life, you are shown every day how deep nature's most truthful law runs. It is the law of cooperation and mutual aid. Don't believe that we live in a world where violent competition is the rule, and you're going to see why here in just a moment. Just a moment. Deep truth is that nature is based upon a model of cooperation, not competition. This last piece is going to pull it together in a really beautiful way. Civilization. We were told that civilization, advanced civilization, began about 5,500 years ago. When I was in school, I was looking at a history map that looks like this. Ancient Sumeria, Mesopotamia, 5,500 years ago. And everything that we know as history is more recent. There's Egypt and India and Greece and Rome. The problem is the data no longer supports this. New discoveries, advanced civilizations over twice this old have been documented, but they're not being shared in the mainstream. They're not being shared in the classrooms. I personally have documented some of them myself. Let me share one with you right here. This is northern Peru. I was just down there 2 weeks ago. This is one of the most bleak, dreary, lifeless, colorless places I've ever been to on the face of the earth. It is the site of a new discovery, an archaeological site, 150 acres, 5 pyramids, 2 circular plazas like this. I'm actually pointing to one of the plazas that we're looking at here. When you look at this from an aerial view, it looks like this. It is called Caral, C-A-R-A-L, Peru. It is now the oldest advanced civilization in all of the Americas. It's older than the Maya, older than the Inca, older than the Aztec, older than the Olmec. That's not being carried in the textbooks. We're told that civilization began 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago is when this one collapsed. And it existed for about 2,000 years before that. So that's one example. Here's another example. This is the oldest civilization now documented anywhere on Earth as an advanced civilization. It's called Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey. This site is a very mysterious site. They haven't even gotten to the bottom of it yet. Smithsonian Institute gave me permission to share some of these images with you. And I want you to see the columns that have been buried. Can you see the hieroglyphs on the columns? They have not gotten to the bottom of this site yet, but the date that they are now arriving at is 11,003 to 11,500 years before today. And they haven't even gotten to the oldest part yet. That's twice as old, is what we've been led to believe, is the date of our most advanced civilizations of the past. This is important because it means that we can learn from the people of the past. Now, I want to go back and plug these dates into a history map. This is the history that we've been taught, is the history of the whole world. Now let's plug in the dates of some of these other sites. There's Caral, Peru. There's the Great Sphinx in Egypt. We didn't even talk about this today. There's Göbekli Tepe, the Gulf of Combat in India. We didn't talk about that today. It's all in the new book. Who doesn't have a copy of Deep Truth? Who wants a copy of Deep Truth? Lori, would you do this? My office manager, Lori, is right here in the front of the room. Lori, this is the audience. Would you give those away to somebody, please? Okay, so the history map is changing. I was trained as a geologist. I want to look at the geology of the world to give this context. The blue image you're seeing up here is the end of the last ice age. After the end of the last ice age, there was 4,000 years of rain and the weather changed with a big storm. And now we begin to get context. Look at this. These ancient civilizations all occurred at the end of the last ice age, the last time the climate shifted the way the climate is shifting now. You know that this is the year 2012. It's a pretty special year, isn't it, right? Why? It's the end of the Mayan calendar. The end of the Mayan calendar marks the end of a 5,000-year cycle of time. Our ancestors knew about those 5,000 years. They knew that every 5,000 years the climate would change and civilization would change and people would change. I'm going to put the dark lines on this map that show every 5,000 years. Okay? Here's our 5,000 years right here. This is us. Here's 5,000 years ago, the beginning of this cycle, and all of the history that we have been taught. It's not the history of the whole world forever, is it? It's the history of what? It's the history of our cycle. It doesn't consider the cycle before ours or the cycle before that. This is where it gets really, really interesting. These 5,000-year cycles. So the deep truth, civilization is at least twice as old as we've been led to believe. We can cross this right off of our chart. Now I'm going to pull this together in a really powerful, beautiful way. One of the mysteries that historians have found when they go back and look at the past, I think may give us tremendous insight into where we are right now. Okay, here is the pyramid of thinking, the lens through which we've defined our relationship to the world. You and I have been led to believe that the origin of life is random. The origin of human life is random. Our relationship to our body is that we're separate and powerless. Our relationship to the world is we're separate and independent. That civilization happened once, one way, linear, and that we solve our problems through competition and conflict. The new discoveries are showing us that life isn't random. Human life isn't random. That we are deeply connected and linked to our bodies. We're connected and interdependent with the earth. That civilization is cyclic and that nature is based upon a model of cooperation and mutual aid. The archaeology is bearing this out. The archaeology is confirming what the science is now telling us. Look at this. Look at this. There's a mystery in all of those ancient archaeological sites. Here it is, Göbekli Tepe. There's no evidence of any war. No evidence of any weapons has been found. No walls to protect the cities. No moats to protect the homes. No evidence of mass graves from large-scale war. The same thing has happened in every other archaeological site. The Gulf of Combat in India, Çatalhöyük in Turkey, Corral in Peru, in ancient Egypt, all of them. No evidence of war, no evidence of weapons, no evidence of the need to protect cities or defend homes, no evidence of mass graves, no evidence of mutilated bodies. One of two things is happening. Either we haven't found them yet, or they simply do not exist. I would think, as diverse as these sites are, we would have found some evidence of weapons or war, and we simply have not. Look at this. Look at this. Here's our map. The first evidence of large-scale war that we see in history is right here at the beginning of our cycle. 5,000 years ago, ancient Sumeria. That's the first evidence of large-scale war. We don't see it before this time. Now, this is interesting because our indigenous ancestors have always told us something about ourselves that we didn't believe. Now we're beginning to believe it. Our indigenous ancestors said that before this cycle, the cycle before ours, was a cycle that was called the Golden Age. The Golden Age where people lived healthy lives, they were close to the earth, they lived to advanced ages, and there was no war. And they said 5,000 years ago, they told us we were entering a dark cycle of war and suffering that would last 5,000 years and end December 21st of the year 2012. And they said, from that time forward, we have the opportunity. Do we perpetuate the cycle of darkness, or do we start anew? Do we embrace the deepest truths of our science that tell us life is based upon cooperation and mutual aid? That's the question that we're answering right now. I have to tell you right now, I believe this generation is about to make a big choice. I believe that you and I are part of the generation that will walk away from war as a means to solve our problems. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why I believe it so strongly, because the evidence supports it. There's a textbook that's used in our classrooms today. Our young people are taught from this textbook. The very first sentence of the textbook, this is the sentence. It says, war is like trade or exchange. It's something all humans do. That's what our young people are being taught. If we are conditioned to look to war as a way to solve our problems, it becomes very easy to make the choice. I believe when the facts are clear, the choices are obvious, and the facts simply do not support that war is human nature. It's not our nature. We are capable of war, and we will resort to war under certain conditions. And the scientists tell us there are three conditions. when we feel personally threatened, when we feel that our way of life is threatened, or when we feel that our families are threatened, we will become violent. You look at the hot spots in the world today, all three of those are present. If we want to bring an end to the war and suffering of the past, we have to find a way for people to feel safe, for their families to feel safe, and their way of life to feel safe. Our ancestors understood this. They carried these deep truths. I've just given you the science that helps us to share these deep truths with people who are beyond the choir. We're the choir. The choir has always believed these things are possible. When we're talking about change on a planet, we have to reach way beyond the choir. And I think the way to do that is to honor our global family with a language that they trust and they respect. In the modern world, science is that language. So when you choose to share this information with your friends and your colleagues, I'm going to invite you, use the science that gives meaning and honoring and is honest and justifies these principles, because that's where the choices are going to be made. I think it's no accident that this conference is happening right here in Washington, D.C., the nerve center of the nation on the planet that so many are looking for to make the choices to lead us into a new way of life. It's no accident this is happening here right now. And because of that, I want to take advantage of this here right now. Okay. Our ancestors told us in times of crisis that together we can tip the scales of peace and life in our favor. They told us we would do it by taking life's longest journey. It's a journey that begins in the center of our mind and travels about 18 inches to where? To our hearts. You're absolutely right. The 18-inch journey that may be the longest journey any of us ever take between our mind and our hearts. And they gave us very, very good reasons to understand that. Now, our own science is beginning to tell us why this is so powerful. You remember early in this program, just about 80 minutes ago, I said that the fields of the earth influence us. The fields of the solar cycles, the magnetic cycles, they influence us. We know that. Okay, so there's nothing new there. Here is the new understanding. We influence those fields as well. It's a two-way conversation. We influence the very fields, the magnetic fields of the earth that connect and sustain all life. Let me share with you how scientists discovered this, and then we're going to do something with it right here. Scientists discovered it during one of the greatest tragedies of recent memory. There are two satellites over the northern hemisphere right now. Every 30 minutes, they send back a signal to tell us how strong the magnetic fields of the earth really are. These fields ebb and flow every day. One day, they became very strong right there. Something happened on Earth that strengthened the magnetic fields of the earth. This little arrow tells the story. It was 9 a.m., September 11th, 2001. 9 a.m., 15 minutes after the first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center. Scientists now believe that this strengthening of the magnetic fields is the result of hundreds of millions of humans watching 9/11 on the media and having a heart-based response to what they're seeing. Your heart creates the strongest magnetic field in your body. When you're in your heart is communicating with the very field of the earth that connects and sustains all life. Our ancestors told us that. 9/11 proved that when hundreds of millions of people feel emotions in their hearts, when they're out of their mind in their hearts, collectively we strengthen this magnetic field of the earth. Now, why is that important? Do you remember what the world felt like, at least for a few days after 9/11? Do you remember? We were a family. We were a family. We were close. We were tight. And scientists attribute the environment that made that possible to the strong magnetic field of the earth. and an experience that is called coherence. Scientists now know that strong, collective human emotion strengthens the magnetic field of the earth. It brings us together as a family. It makes us less aggressive, more cooperative, more willing to solve our problems. Let me give you an example. Right after 9/11, I was in Paris. I was doing a workshop in a room like this, 3,500 people in the room. There was a man in the room that was agitated. He was upset. Security came and they took him away. And I said, don't kick him all the way out. I said, just have him wait in the hall. And while he was in the hall, the room created a heart-based experience. It's called coherence between the heart and the brain. We created a coherent field. And when we brought the man back into the room, we gave him a microphone and said, please share your experience. The man came back in and he had a look on his face, very strange. And I said, what's wrong? What are you feeling? He said, in my mind, I know why I'm angry. He said, I cannot feel the anger in my heart. In the presence of a coherent field, he could not feel the anger in his heart. Here's the reason I'm sharing that story. What happened for that man in that room is possible for a planet. When we move into our hearts in an intentional way, awaken the power of the human magnetic field of the heart to couple, to marry the field of the earth, we create coherence. We know it's possible because it happened in September 11th. We know it can be done intentionally because we've seen it in the laboratory. I saw it in Paris. And this is what our ancestors have told us for so very long. Our ancestors said, when we move into our hearts, that's where we find the power to make the transition, to transcend, not just survive, transcend the greatest crises of human history. I've got something I want to share with you. It's something that just came to me. I'm going to do this a little differently. AV staff, I'm going to need the audio for this program. You've heard there's a big war brewing in the Middle East. A lot of people are pushing this war because they believe it's going to be good for the economy. That's a sad statement, isn't it? Peace is good for the economy. Peace is a powerful, viable economy. But it's a war that never needs happen. Bruce, tomorrow, I believe, is going to talk to you about something that is called the imaginal cell. When a caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it turns into liquid, and something mysterious happens. And a few cells awaken and begin to behave differently, and other cells begin to follow, and the caterpillar becomes a butterfly or a moth. You know that. They are called the imaginal cells. I'm using that as a metaphor because in our global family, imaginal cells are awakening to a new way to deal with the problems and the crises in our lives. Now, I'm going to give you an example right now. This is so beautiful. It's so powerful. Some of you have seen this. It's worth seeing again. Some have never seen this. You're going to be in awe. This is an open letter from an Israeli man to the people of Iran in response to what they're seeing in the media. You know that the media is talking about a war between Israel and Iran, about a nuclear program. A lot of other things are involved here. I think none of us have all of the details. But this story is powerful. It's not a political statement. It's one person speaking to a nation. The accent is thick, so I'm going to set this up for you, and then I'm going to play this so you can see it. This Israeli man says in an open letter to the people of Iran, for us to have a war, we must hate you. We cannot hate you because we don't even know you. But we know this, Iranians, we love you, and we will not hurt you. 48 hours later, Iranians were sending letters back to the Israelis saying the same thing. They said, Israel, we love you. We can't have a war with you because we don't hate you. We don't even know you. This is the imaginal cells of humankind awakening to a greater possibility in honoring the principles that we now know are the dearest principles of nature, cooperation and mutual aid. Are you okay if I share this with you? Okay, so if we can have the audio up. And at the end of this, I'm going to ask that you not applaud. Please don't applaud. Honor the feeling in your hearts. Honor the silence, and we're going to go into a close. His name is Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie. I'm 41 years old. I'm a father. I'm a graphic designer. I'm a teacher. I'm a citizen of Israel, and I need your help. Lately in the news you can hear about a war coming, a big one. Governments are talking about destruction, about self-defense, like this war is not about us. 3 days ago I posted a poster on Facebook. The message was simple: Iranian, we will never bomb your country. We love you. Attached to the poster I wrote a few words. To the Iranian people, to all father, mother, children, brothers and sisters. For there to be a war between us, first we must be afraid one of each other. We must hate. I'm not afraid of you. I don't hate you. I don't even know you. No Iranian ever did me no harm. I never even meet an Iranian. Just one in Paris in a museum. Nice dude. I see sometime here on the TV an Iranian. He's talking about war. I sure it does not represent all of the people of Iran. If you see someone on your TV talking about bombing you, be sure it does not represent all of the people of Israel. So within 24 hours, people start sharing the poster on their Facebook. Within 48 hours, the Iranian people start responding to the posters and share back their love to us. Hundreds of messages arriving from Iran telling the Israeli people, we love you back. The day after, we were on TV, on newspaper, proving that the message was traveling fast. Okay, now we want to make sure that the message reaches everybody, not only in the Facebook community, but everywhere. This is a message by the people to the people. So please donate and help us spread this message. Thank you.
Okay, if you could honor the silence just for a moment. Can we bring our audio up, please, on the... Thank you. So you've just seen a powerful example of humans reaching out to one another honoring the principles in their heart that our own science tells us is the principle that governs this world: cooperation, peace, mutual aid, love. In our most cherished and ancient traditions, our ancestors remind us that the way that we communicate this field in our hearts and the world around us is through a feeling in our hearts, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of appreciation, the feeling of compassion, of care. These are the feelings that create what is called the coherence between our hearts, our brains, and this earth. But our ancestors didn't have machines to do it for them. They used the power of sound and the instruments of the earth. As we close this portion of our program, I invite you to join me in the ancient language of the heart. I invite you to join me as we feed the field of the earth that connects all things. Every CEO of every corporation, every leader of every nation is connected through the field that we are communicating with right now through our hearts. And in the presence of coherence, it's really hard to declare war on another country. It's really hard to fight with your neighbor. In the traditions of the ancient, in the forgotten peoples of this world, there's always been a belief that each time the breath of a human passes through an instrument of the earth, in that moment we reenact the most sacred act. It's the union between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter, between all that has ever been and that which is yet to be. I invite you to allow the sound of this ancient instrument to lead you into your heart for that feeling. All of our ancestors, all of our ancestors, all of our ancestors with us now. The voices of our ancestors are with us now. The wisdom of our ancestors is with us now. The peace of our ancestors is with us now. The healing of our ancestors is with us now. The compassion of our ancestors is with us now. The longing to love this world and one another is with us now. Is with us now. Is with us now. And in the traditions of those who have come before us, when we come together in times like this, and we've completed what we've come together to accomplish, we honor our completion by simply saying, "It is good, it is done, so be it. It is good, it is done, so be it. It is good, it is done, so be it. It is good, it is done, so be it." I invite you to take one more deep breath. And that's what I came to share with you today. A message of hope, possibility, and examples that give us reasons to think differently about ourselves and our relationship to the world, and to see how those examples are playing out in the real world.